Today is April 3rd, 2014, and my name is Peg Brown. I am interviewing Carrie Gonzales, who lives in Lyons. This interview is being recorded for the Maria Rogers Oral History Program, the Flood Interview Project, and filmed by Liz McCrunchen. So I get to ask the first question, which is, where were you born?
In Clovis, New Mexico, in the Air Force. My father was in the Air Force, so we traveled a bit.
And how did you make your way to Colorado?
Well, I was working in California after living many other places, but in California I was a property manager for a 12-acre federally subsidized apartment complex in a really bad area. And
what city?
San Bernardino.
Okay.
And there were a lot of shootings and things, but got over all that, and I cleaned up the apartment complex, got a lot of awards for it and whatnot from HUD. And but there was an earthquake and I couldn't get over it. And my sister lived here in Colorado, and I actually went on I guess you'd call it stress leave, and I was compensated and everything, and I moved out here to Colorado. She had rented me a trailer and everything in Greeley, and my 4 children and I moved out here, and I still was shaking from that earthquake. When I'd put my clothes in the washer and it would go into spin, I would jump out of my skin, you know, or any herky-jerky motion, and I would just stayed in Colorado after that. And then my ex-husband kind of found me and chased me down, and he was wreaking havoc in the neighborhood of Platteville, which I ended up in. And so it was suggested that I move, and I just kind of went driving around the area and saw a little mobile home in Lyons, and then couldn't find it again for anything because it was tucked away. And I finally found it, and my kids and myself moved in, and that was like 25 years ago. And there we had been since, and they all grew up there.
So, so you have 4 children?
Mm-hmm.
And and so they all grew up here? They all went to Lyons High School?
Yeah, in and out, and then they kind of went to other high schools in the area too.
Well, bravo to you for raising 4 children.
Yeah, and I have a 5th one, but she's all grown up.
Okay.
Yeah, now, and she lives in California, captain in the Air Force and all. But the 4 were the together bunch.
That's great. So, could you describe for us a little bit how you came to own your business, Honey and More?
Well, I worked for Madhava Honey just part-time. Craig asked me to build up the store and build up the candle making supplies, and I did that, and it became very successful. I think from what I was told, it paid off the mortgage on the property. And Madhava grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and they outgrew the property, and they had to take on investors, and they moved to a big unit out on I-25 and 66, and in doing so, they kept the store open a little while, but it just didn't work. And they sold the property and had a big sale, sold everything in it. And in town, it's so small, and everybody knows me as the honey lady because I worked there for 15 years, and I'd always pass out honey sticks at the festivals and things. I couldn't even check my mail, and people were coming to my house. They knew what I'd drive looking for honey, bee pollen, beeswax. So Kevin, my partner, said, maybe you should try to rent the empty building back. And since I had often done little farmers markets, I had a little supply of honey in stock. I'd always keep about $200 worth that I'd purchased from Madhava. And I had that, and so I went and held my breath, took some of my severance pay, and Eben charged me very, very fair rent. And I put it all on a table and sold it and bought more and sold it and bought more, and the store is now packed full. And it's still very popular, and a lot of people are very, very thankful, as it's somewhat of an icon in the area. And nowadays it doesn't make much money, but I have so many customer friends that I'm trying to keep it open forever and therefore stay in Lyons, so I can do that.
Well, that's just great. So could you describe where you were living before the flood in September?
I was living at the same mobile home that I lived at for many years, and
that's located, can you describe its location?
It's located pretty close to the river. Up until last year, I wasn't even on the floodplain, so I didn't really have flood insurance. We were waiting to hear the new ones, and I was pretty much the only trailer that wasn't. But because I had 4 children when I moved into that place, I had automatically put things up. And they never really came down, even as the kids grew, whether it be up on higher shelves for the decorative things, the memorabilia, whatnot. And then as the kids' little treasures, I'd put those in the attic of the shed as time went on. And so in the wake of the flood, I didn't really lose a whole lot of the very precious things.
So, and the trailer park is located very close to Route 36, right as you enter Lyons.
Right at what they call the gateway to the Rockies. You can either go Highway 7 to Estes or 36, and I'm on the 36 side. And I lived across the street from where they have the festivals. A very, very lovely place. I would go fishing, aka catching, every morning. And there was a beautiful swimming hole just off of the trailer park that we pretty much had private access to. But the other side was Meadow Park. I woke up every morning and just so enjoyed every single morning I lived there.
And about how many trailers were in the park?
I think it was 36.
Okay. So you really enjoyed that. How long did you live there, did you say?
I think it was like 21, 25
That's a long time.
years, yeah.
Yeah. So here you are, you have your life, you have your honey and more store, your children are grown, life's probably seeming pretty good, and then the flood happens. So could you describe in as much detail as possible your memories of the, the night of the flood and then from then on?
Well, the night of the flood, Kevin, my partner, he had not been sleeping well. He has some other issues, and he claims he was sleeping the best he ever did in his in the past 2 years. And I was just having a normal sleep, but the phone kept ringing. And it was about 3 in the morning. It was my friend Michelle, and I thought she had been at the bar and got a little toked up and was mad at her boyfriend and was calling, and so I just kind of ignored it until about third call she was screaming on the phone. And Kevin answered it and looked outside, and he said, "We got to go." And we had kittens at the time, and a mama cat, 2 mama cats, 3 kittens. One was the other, 2 belonged to the other mom. And I grabbed them. They were all sleeping on the couch, put them in the car, ran back inside. I grabbed my slippers because I couldn't even, the water was already there. Our feet were wet. And I just jumped in the car, didn't take anything, didn't even take my meds, and drove to the high school, or the grade school, on higher ground, because we had always drilled that before. We had one evacuation when the kids were small. So I knew exactly where to go. And Kevin was going to try to save another car. And it was kind of defective, but a classic. It was a 63 Ford Falcon delivery, which everybody in town cherishes. And we separated, and I didn't see him for a half an hour. And I was already actually sitting on that hill next to the school with the kittens and the cat, and thinking I should start detaching from Kevin, because I had just experienced the death of my little sister, my mother. Sorry. And so I just was ready to accept that he was not coming, because the water was coming too fast. He should have come with me, but there was no time to think.
Did you actually feel like he might be dead?
I was worried. I really was. It was coming up so fast, and he wouldn't get in the car with me. But he probably knew better what he was doing than I did, at the time, because I just hightailed it. And he was going to go back and try to get another vehicle, and that's what was taking so long. But he was smart enough not to do that. But you know how men are. they take stupid chances a lot of times. But
so
I'm
how
thankful
long was it before you knew how
it was? About a half an hour, and he was lost, and he couldn't find me. And his headlights had gone out in the car. And so we were trying to communicate by phone, and the phones kept flicking in and out. But we finally did connect. And the way I feel about that was actually my first happiness after the flood. And at that point, I started looking for all the happinesses. And by God, they started coming. They really did. There's a lot of sadness, a lot of loss.
Yeah.
But I can remember looking down on the river as it was happening, because a few days after, well, after the rain lightened up a little, my friend Meryl lives on the cliff right above my house, and she allowed me to go up there and watch. And so we watched the river rise, and watched our place go under, and we watched cars float.
Is this
And
on Thursday? Thursday morning?
you know what? I have no remembrance of the time frame. If somebody asked me, I thought the flood lasted a day, but I was informed it lasted about a week. So it was all like one big day for me. But I would say it was probably the midpoint of the flood,
Okay.
and we could get up there, and the water was still rising at the time, and we could see my bug. It went under. My VW classic bug went under, and I thought that was the first thing that was going to float because of the old commercials. And by God, it didn't, but there were vans floating around, all of the neighbors. And it was so sad because our neighbors had a lot of musical equipment. We all knew what everybody had and what was being taken down. Now my mom had just passed away recently, and she knew I was always upset about my yard being cluttered and all full of Kevin's junk. And I just remember thinking to myself and looking up going, thank you, Mom, for cleaning my yard. And Kevin can't get mad at me at all. Because I really didn't think the flood was going to be as damaging as it was. And I thought, wow, what a cool way to get rid of it and break our hoarding habits.
And
I think
so
that
where did you sleep then?
that night we slept in, we had a 2006 RAV that my mom, she was going to pass to Kevin, but she passed away before she could write it out, so it got kind of stuck in probate and things. And but we had it because we had to come out and rescue one of our relatives that got stuck, and so we ended up with it in Colorado. Otherwise, we would have just had the VW Beetle and the faulty Falcon. And thank heavens we had that, because it saved us. It was clean, it was big, it was huge, and we were able to sleep in it a few days. The gym would have been available to us, but we had that, and we were very happy, and we did have the cats. But the kittens, we would go spend our time in the daytime in the gym, because we had meals. We had to eat all the food in the restaurants because it was going bad. So we ate very well. And but somebody brought in a kennel, brand new in the box, and proceeded to set it all up, which meant, wow, we can bring the kittens in. And the kittens were there for the kids. And the kids enjoyed the kittens, and the kittens enjoyed the kids, you know, and then we'd take them in at night with us. And so that was kind of another happiness, a little happy thing.
Yeah, yeah.
We ultimately did have to take them to the shelter when we were able to get out, because it was just, we took them to the house to let the cats see what happens, because we knew they were going to have to make a change. We didn't want them going wild and weird on us. So we took them there, and I laid down blankets and stuff. It was just too moist, and I was afraid they'd get distemper or something. And one of them got a fish hook in their foot. But we took them to the Humane Society, and Humane, and they took such good care of them. They were so kind, but my cat was kind of traumatized. It hasn't left my side since we picked it up. But once we moved in up here, that's when we brought them back. But the flood was, it took days to just get a partial part of a car dug out, or to make an access path into an area of the house.
Because you were able to go from the elementary school back to where your
once the waters
trailer was.
receded, since I was the highest trailer, I was one of the first to be able to get back into mine. And that was a blessing, because I was able to probably stop mold. Whereas a lot of people couldn't get to theirs for a few days afterwards, including Kevin's rental trailer. We didn't get to that for quite some time. And but just getting in there, we had plenty of shovels, but there's just two people because everybody's fending for themselves. But yet, if one of the neighbors came to us, oh, do you have a wheelbarrow? Kevin would run over and help them. I think he had this old Willys that ultimately died after the flood because it got water in it. But he plucked a few cars out for neighbors. He'd stop digging and his cars out. But everybody helped everybody. Even if it was just monumental, because for a month at least, maybe longer, there were volunteers chomping at the bit trying to get to us and help us. And we were an island. They couldn't get in. And so it was just slow going. I think it took us, 2 months just to move what we could save out of there. And then when the last 2 weeks of moving stuff, that's when the volunteers came, and then everything went lickety-split. We had already gotten half of it done, but that was working pretty much 24/7. You'd get home and unload, and then try to do a pre-sort of sorts. And we had all of our things in a tent, we were staying in a small studio that a friend of ours let us stay in. Within 2 weeks of the flood, we were very fortunate. Now, being on Apple Valley, we had utilities and everything else, and there were quite a few homes up in the upper Apple Valley that survived, and they needed to be able to get to their homes because they had everything. Lyons was shut off from electric, gas, sewer, water, all infrastructure was gone, but up on these places in Apple Valley, they had it. So one could go into Longmont and get a pass to go through. Now, we were very lucky that way because that allowed us to continue on with our home.
Did the National Guard regulate that?
Yeah, you had to have a tag in your car. I saved all my little tags.
To hold on to those.
But we were lucky, and having the honey store, I was also lucky that I was able to thank the National Guard by passing them honey sticks, which they loved. They loved.
Oh, what a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
It must have been exhausting, though, to dig out. Did you say that Kevin had like 3 motorcycles?
He had 4.
4?
Well, I have one, and he had 4. I have a Harley, a real pretty one, and they've all gone under and need to be completely rebuilt. I'm giving mine a year to think about what I can do with it. I think I might be able to save it, but right now it's just too much to think about. But it's too much to lose, too. It was my investment for my family and my kids, so I'm going to hang on to that. But he did get compensated from FEMA because he lost all of his vehicles, and he did buy another motorcycle, so that's started his healing. But he didn't do well for a long time, which is how I know other people didn't fare as well as I did during the flood. They may have even had less loss. I had no loss in that earthquake that devastated me so emotionally and physically. It's just different how people took it. But having been through that earthquake, I think eased me through the flood. Because I felt safe.
I think that gave you a little more resilience?
Yeah, because I felt safe. I could see this flood. I could walk away from it, And
you knew it was done.
Yeah, and now it would have been different, of course, if I would have been trapped somewhere, and the water was rising up to my neck, but that wasn't the case, so I felt very fortunate. And then to be in Lyons is a whole nother thing, because it was, for lack of a better word, somewhat of a party and a get-together, because we were all experiencing this together, and they're all the type of people that accept all that and talk about all that and make the best out of it as best they can,
I heard that the restaurants knew they were losing all this food in the freezers, so they'd bring the food out and people would have grills or whatever, and everybody would eat together.
I think there was more food there than we could have eaten that fast. And then the liquor store owner was on the same island, and he opened up, so we had warm beer to go with it, So everybody was just happy as a lark having a big camp out, because there was not a darn thing we could do anyway.
What did you do for water? Did you run out of water?
The National Guard, they really came in rapidly with water. I don't know how they did that, because they actually built, I guess, a temporary bridge that they wouldn't let anybody else go over, and when they went over it, it was very risky. But they got us water, like right away. And I was trying to think, there were a few sources. I think the school had some bottled water too, just to get us started and all.
I know you could hear. Could you hear helicopters going over all the time?
Not for a few days.
It was quiet.
Yeah, because even the rescue ones couldn't get in. It rained real hard, and again, no pictures, no rescue. But then, the helicopters started coming, and that was pretty cool to watch, That was, again, I enjoyed it, It was, wow, I am part of this huge moment in history, And I survived it, and we only lost one person, and that was Jerry Boland. He was one of my honey customers, and his family, and his wife, they took out, like Kevin and I, separating 2 cars. So they could, the water wasn't that deep, it was there. And he made it to the shelter, and she didn't, and he turned back for her, but it turned out, in fact, she was stranded and had to be rescued.
I heard that her car was off to the side of the road, or there were 3 people in the car. I think this was the same car.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened, how hers went down, but she did have to be, I think, airlifted out.
Yeah. it was really quite extraordinary that we didn't lose more lives.
Well, yeah, especially when we have our dum-dum Terry, our one diehard, the diehard that doesn't want to leave. And
Now,
we
who
kept,
is he?
He lived in about 6 trailers in, and he just wasn't going to leave. Now, he had lived there, since him and his wife were married, and they were just in their 20s, you know, they were little hippies and all.
Yeah.
So it was pretty hard for him to leave. And we lost phone communication with him as he said the water was starting to come in. And that was great. Thanks, Terry. And he had his big bottle of vodka, and he was just going to ride it out. And when he came out, a few people ran to greet him, and none of us, we didn't know whether to kill him or kiss him.
Yeah.
You know, but he was safe. And Peter, the psychologist who lived in the house that was on the property, which it had a basement, elevated basement, he wrote it out, not willingly. He woke up and couldn't get out. But that house held up, and Jenna, who used to live in the house, bought him home in the trailer park, a mobile home. Mike Whipp asked her to move back into it. So they're fixing it up, and she's kind of back home.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people haven't had a chance to be back home yet.
Yeah, in her case, she's really home. She's actually the only one left in the trailer park, but she actually had that house before.
That's
and
great.
Everybody's happy for her.
That's great. Do you remember sirens going off in
We
the
couldn't
night?
hear them over the water.
Whoa.
And that's where the phone calls were important. And we had Louie, who was running around rescuing everybody, and he almost died because nobody could hear the sirens. There was Tom way at the end, who's totally deaf, and he would just walk around, and he couldn't hear you for anything. And Louie broke in and pulled him out and carried him through the water and got him to Dave Lou's car, I believe, and they got him out of there, and they got Michelle out, and Louie went in looking for other people, and he got tangled up on an extension cord all by himself in darkness. It was dark, but he did get out. He said he saw his life flash before his eyes. Now Louie, because he was so helpful to us, he also helped us dig some of our vehicles out with its conveniently located skidster, a little hoe.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a little small bobcat.
What's Louie's last name?
Gonzales, like mine.
Gonzales. Okay.
And he's always been a friend. He has a wonderful son that we all visited with, and birthday gifts and stuff like that. But because he was so noble and became a dearer friend at that point, when we were able to move into this larger home, we introduced him to Paul so he could take the studio here, because he ended up taking a leave of absence from his job, his regular backhoe job, to work in Lyons to help the recovery. And so he needed to be close by here, so he's in that apartment over there.
Right. Do you have some more examples about how neighbors really stepped up and really sort of reached out in a way that they wouldn't have normally, maybe?
As evacuees out of our home and everything else, I left with just sleeping clothes on, which were kind of like street clothes because they're sweats, whatever. But just droves and droves of the people that were dry up on the hill, the very expensive homes, and the people we really don't know that well. We know them, but some are bedroom folks, bedroom community. We see them in get-togethers, good old days, parades, whatnot. But they're not involved in going to the happy hour where we all sit on the summer and visit and play music or whatever. But they brought us, we didn't need anything. There was nothing we needed, except for maybe to go back to our house. But medication was an issue for a lot of people. Kevin was smart enough to grab his. I didn't even think to grab mine because I just didn't think it was going to get that deep sense I wasn't on the floodplain. I knew I'd flood. I'd have a mess. I always expected one. But I didn't think it would last that long. I think it was 3 or 5 days, something like that. And so the Dr. Raycott's apparently he was on our island because he was able to take down names and numbers and get, because I do take the high blood pressure medicine, he was able to get that and bring them to people. It was a few days. I was a few days without my meds. But like for high blood pressure, I know eating celery can help you. And so we had plenty of fresh vegetables. I ate a lot of celery, and I kind of kept calm. And again, there wasn't a whole lot you could do while you were waiting for the water to subside, except for sit around and be calm and talk to neighbors. And there was some friends of ours that set up a little camp down there by Sandstone Park in the back of what's the bed and breakfast. It's kind of a space, maybe parking. And they brought Gary to join in on the flood. They set up a little camp and they just had their little beers and they just sit there and watch the day go by and the big trucks go by, and every now and again we'd join them. And then it migrated over to Brock's house, which became the bar. And they actually had one. They actually had a bar, and they in the Christmas parade they put it on a flatbed truck. The bar
Oh,
was
really?
yeah, because
the famous bar.
And but needless to say, when Terry, the one who wrote out the storm, and Brad got stuck here he used to live here and lives in Gold Hill now. He brought Gary with him because Gary was a very good friend, just recently died of a brain tumor and was cremated. And he was the last one we scattered his ashes in the river. But he's in a powder horn, and so we had him hanging up there. So even Gary was at the flood.
Were you, at some point, did the city officials suggest that you leave, that you evacuate?
Everybody, it was a mandatory evacuation. Everybody had to, but by the time they made that determination, we had the apartment that we could stay in on Apple Valley. As long as you had full utilities, you could stay.
That was good. So you felt fortunate that way.
Very fortunate. And I guess I'm kind of happy that I had Dorothy and Paul as friends. Dorothy is a long-standing member in the community. She's getting very old. She's being taken care of by her niece. But having helped them for many, many years as best we could whenever they'd need some trimming done, or Paul would need to go to the hospital because he has issues, or whatever they needed, we'd hook up at least 2 to 3 times a week. And it kind of paid off because we had their trust, and not everybody has that, but not everybody has that opportunity either.
Yeah. So during this time, could you get to your honey business building to see what
I
it
could
was
get
like?
to it. It was a little scary because the road narrowed down to like 1 lane. And since I was so concerned about trying to save what I could into my house, I literally closed the doors. Well, I didn't close the doors. I needed to back up because Eben Grace, who has Grace Designs, they took on water. They had a couple of them trying to clean up their big building. But I was able to, because of the roadblock, open, there's another door in my store and windows and everything else. I was able to open it up. It had electric, and blow the fans and keep the bees dry. And so it just dried out while I was doing the other things. And then after we got to the home to a kind of a stopping point, I had made a sign that I couldn't open because the roadblocks did come down, and my customers were so understanding. And so I just checked on it periodically because I had to feed the bees. All their blossoms were wiped out. But I didn't open it. I did, however, take many 1-pound jars of like honey to the town square meetings that we were having for the people that stayed on. There was about 63 of us that couldn't get honey, so I just passed it out to them.
Oh, great.
Because everybody was giving us stuff. I had something to give, and that was nice.
Yes, indeed.
And but I didn't reopen the store for about 2 months. It took us 2 months even to make enough headway to where we felt we were comfortable to stop. But I remember going into the store going, oh, here we go again, because I had to start all over with cleanup. But I didn't lose any items in the store. I did, however, have a storage unit attached to my trailer that was all my supplies for the store because it's so tiny. And I lost pretty much all of those. It just filled up like a bottle, and it agitated everything. And that was all gone. I did have a few jars of honey in glass, though, that survived, and because I had heard that if canned goods got wet, if you remove the labels and gave them a bleach bath, they would be fine. And so I called the health department to see if I could save that honey, because those bees worked hard, and I could.
Great.
I was able to save whatever honey may have gotten wet. So that was a blessing. Oh.
Have it all cleaning, and it must have been really tough.
Yeah,
Just
and
so much
then
cleaning.
Not knowing that I would ever find another car like I had before, I started thinking about cleaning up my Volkswagen that went under. And
Could you describe it? Because I don't think
it's a little
we can-
yellow Volkswagen Beetle that is another little icon in the community. I've been driving it for as long as I've lived here. It used to be white prior to me working at the honey store, but when I worked at the honey store one day, we all just had a wild hair and said, let's paint it yellow and put stripes on it and throw it in the parade. And so it stayed in the parade ever since. And everybody in town just knows that car. It was kind of a bummer because it wasn't for at least a month and a half before Geico could come out and look at it. It was the only car I had fully insured because it was like my business car. And they came out and gave me just a ridiculous quote because it was rusty, it was dented, it was this, it was that, and I was like, oh no, that car was in mighty fine shape and had a brand new engine. So I had to battle, and I finally got what I wanted out of Geico. And in doing the research to
Good.
show Geico that my vehicle was worth much more than he was saying, I stumbled upon another yellow bug. But since I had no car, the girl in Golden, she brought it to me. And I made a friend, her name was Christine,
Oh.
and she spent the day up here, and she was going to make it up for the parade, but she'll be up this summer.
That's
She already
great.
bought me a little bee shirt. She goes, I'll buy you something, Carrie.
That's
and,
such great stories.
Yeah, and again, I started having all these little happiness things, you know.
Yes.
I've been very fortunate, but I'm sure a lot of people want to slap me, saying, how can you be so happy? But, you know, I think everybody at some point, and even the ones who lost their father, Jerry, and I think they have, will say, my friend the flood, because things are going to be better. As long as they can return to Lyons, which all of Lyons is fighting to get everybody back. And there are a few that don't want to come back, and some have been put in better positions. And they may have already said, my friend the flood. I know I have, because I've had a lot of nice things happen to me. And we managed to, backing up a little, checking into Kevin's trailer that was close to the river that we were not able to get to for a while. About a month into it, we went to go get his renter to do an inspection to give the deposit back, and we opened the door and it was high and dry.
Oh,
So we actually have a home, unlike other people. So there was another surprise and happiness. Now faced with, how do we get it out of here? Where are we going to put it? There's no mobile home parks. We were blessed to have a good friend with a big farm that he's storing it for us. And that's really rare to find mobile home storage, but people are having a little slack, you know, with people that have been through the flood.
and you've been working with is it a committee, a Lyons City?
Yeah,
City
early
committee?
on, I was one of the first members of the housing. It's not the task force. The task force emerged from that. That is an actual entity, but it's the housing working group. And right away, I was on it trying to get mobile homes and this and that, the other, and they were really being bucked. I don't know why, but it's finally on the table. A lot of it was there was no land available. Everybody's so shook, they don't even really realize there is some land available, and the connections are being lost. And the other mobile home that was horribly devastated, that mobile homeowner wants to rebuild. But he's hitting some brick walls because he's on the floodplain. He wants to mitigate, but they can't determine the mitigation, so we're still in storage. I've been helping him quite a bit because he's not internet savvy, and so I've been printing out all the information for him and mailing it to him down there. He lives in Watkins, and he can't get up here all the time, but he's starting to make progress with it, and the town is now starting to work with him. And I've also suggested to the town, too, that the confluence area that was so very wiped out, there were 20 homes there that were completely destroyed. There may even be some people there that may fall through the cracks and not have the funding. Although there's been generous funding, just the way you fall in certain ways, they may not be able to afford the home they think they can, and therefore they may need a mobile home. There's just going to be so many. Everybody is an individual situation, and they are treating everybody completely individual.
And I know there's concern among Lyons people. They want to offer affordable housing. They want it to be a place where you can continue to live affordably.
And that's also been a plight too, prior to the flood. And if they can make it work hand in hand, that's really good. Because, for instance, I read a post on Postbook. A woman said, you know, my children can't even. Grew up here. They can't afford to come back here and live. And, you know, with mobile homes, you know, they can do that. Now, they talked about replacing or making subsidized housing. Now, none of the subsidized homes were lost. They're still the same amount of them. Nothing was hurt there. So that's almost something that doesn't really need to be addressed. You know, the 43 mobile homes need to be addressed because that's what was lost.
That was a lot of...
And 20 homes were completely destroyed, but 173 of them are rebuilding. So they aren't really lost. Those folks still have homes. They are able to rebuild. They're in the right areas. They can do that. So the real concentration, final concentration of people that lost their homes, I guess is 20 stick homes, they call them, and 43 mobile homes. Of the 43 mobile homes, I think there's probably 15 that are not coming back, that moved on. And there's quite a few, the rest do want to come back. And I have now gained the full list of those people, and I'm going to start putting my focus on that instead of the big picture of the housing group.
Well, that's what you know that community well. I can feel your energy for it.
Well, I had been doing a lot of research on it anyway because I had hopes years before when Mike Whip took it over to purchase the property underneath my lot because it was the end lot. And I had tried before, but through the Department of Agriculture, but you have to have everybody in the park, make a homeowners agreement, and there were a few people that really didn't want to commit. So that was never doable. Now with the flood, that may be doable. You know, there may be that opportunity. So I had done a lot of research in that area about mobile homes, and then I came into the thing where, okay, they don't want a mobile home. Everybody's bugging this mobile home. Okay, well, I'll get them. How about if we do a Lionesque retro mobile home park? Because I know of an outfit that restores vintage mobile homes. And in my mind, I'm envisioning a little sea of seafoam green coral with the
1950s?
flamingos.
Is that the retro?
Yeah, and each and every one of the ones that want people that want to come back would be so into that. That's not saying we couldn't have new trailers, but if you have a fully restored one, they would so cherish it. And instead of being a mobile home eyesore, it would be an attraction.
That's a creative idea.
And they're available, and they're actually half the price. Up in Greeley, it's called Bluebird Mobile Homes. I bought one from them when my children were small before I moved to Lyons.
Okay.
It was a 1964 Hicks, and it was a 10 by 55, 3-bedroom. You had to step outside to change your mind. But I had a washer and dryer. It fit my kids perfect, and it was just darling.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and he still has those. And what you do is you go pick out the mobile home you like, and they will restore it at that point. He also, Bluebird Mobile Homes was hit by the flood, and they lost 17 of the homes. But I put the bug in his ear about the Lyons people now getting the thing from Lyons. But you can't move an older one. You can't have them in a park, and that's all entirely up to the park manager, owner. It's not any law in Boulder County at all. And of course, they have to have their safety standards, but of course, he is inspected, you know. But so that it is doable, very doable. And I'm working on it.
You sure are.
And I'll tell you, in Lyons, and I'm not sure about every small town, if you want to get something done in Lyons, you actually can. Your voice is heard, and it always has been. At one point, they came to the trailer park and decided to put us on separate sewer units, not knowing how to do it because we were on well water. They put taps on there and charged every unit $95, including Planet Bluegrass that would have 3,000 people once a year. And I'm like, okay, you guys, we need to gather up and get down to town hall. And about 10 of us did that. And they put us on a payment plan, put the meters in instead of just a flat rate, and we got it done.
Great.
And you can get stuff done, but we haven't got we haven't had to do that a lot because things were pretty complacent all the time. But when you want to be heard, you can be heard in Lyons.
That's great, because I know a lot of cities, I know like Longmount, there was a trailer park near the St. Vrain, and those trailers were pretty much destroyed, and so the city actually bought the land, and they're trying to help people relocate, not to another trailer park necessarily. So it sounds like you have a good shot at doing something creative and help people
I'm
stay
hoping,
here.
and John, the one who wants to rebuild Foothills, I don't think, they're trying to do a land swap with him, but I don't think he's going to do it because I think he is emotionally attached to that land. And they're still considering another piece of land, which may create 2 mobile home parks, which I feel is needed because that's still, they're both be small. It still doesn't quite reach to 43, but not that many are coming back, but maybe the confluence, people that might need some. I am the one that wants to still live by the river. I'll still put my stuff up. Might put a canoe on the top of the house, but you know, but maybe be a little
Probably
more prepared.
wise, kind of like your insurance policy.
I always threaten to do that in my other one, and exactly that, put insurance policy.
You might get more from it than some insurance companies, I must say.
Yeah, but Lyons is beautiful.
Yes.
Being down by the river, I have noticed being up here on the hill in the mountains, kind of. I have crock pots all over the house with water simmering in them because we're just getting static to pieces because we always had the moisture down by the river. And we also had the negative ions, you know, and it's, you really don't realize how much you appreciate it till you don't have it. And I still love living near the river, and I'll do it again if I can.
Have you missed the sound of the river? Could you hear the river from where you live?
Yeah, and that's part of why we didn't wake up. Because when you're in that deep of a sleep, I guess maybe you're REM at that point, we're used to hearing the river at night. And it was pretty out, our windows were open. What we were hearing was still the river, but we didn't realize that it was a raging river. While you're sleeping, it's just putting you deeper asleep, you know?
Yeah. Do you have any comments to make about FEMA and how helpful they were?
Oh man, they were wonderful. They've had the coolest people, and they so appreciated us. I was very saddened at first because they kept telling me that they were only giving me repair money, and we could not keep our mobile homes there. And my mobile home had the type of damage that if you would have tried to pull it out, it could have been savable if it could sit there. But trying to pull it out, get it over a berm where it is, because they had a bridge project about 5 years ago that restructured the land, and I don't know how we would have gotten it out of there. They had, the only way out was to demolish it. So I didn't get the full amount. And I guess the full amount is like $31,000, and it's very generous, perhaps not for homeowners that own stick homes, but for a mobile home person, you know, again, with this little retro, it could work for us. But if you did not use up that full amount, unbeknownst to us at the time, you can use it on rental assistance, because where we're staying now is 3 to 4 times greater than what we were paying. And they'll meet us, they've been meeting us about a little more than halfway, so we're just maybe $100 each more than what we were paying. And so that in itself, we can utilize that until our funds are used up.
That's a tremendous help for you.
And that's keeping us here while we're hoping to get this other stuff done. Now, we might have some issues when that runs out. But I do have my little camper down there, which was supposed to be in the front of the driveway, which was in the back of the driveway, which Kevin won't let be in the back of the driveway anymore because that was our escape vehicle. It went under. But I'm sure my friend Dorothy may work with us, but I'm hoping something will happen.
Because you lost, you said you couldn't open your business for like 2 months or something like that. So
it was mostly for the digging. You know, we just had to try to save what we could, and I'm glad I saved my camper, because the camper, not only is it a place to live if we ever need it, I was using it for my office space, and I really like it, and it was accepted into the trailer park, and it's kind of a trendy little thing people do now, and it's pretty much completely savable, and I'm thankful I have it, because it could be a safety net again.
Good.
And before I knew I could get the building for that little store, because people were coming to me, and I didn't know the new owners, I was actually going to utilize that camper as my honey store and sell the bulk honey out of it. And I was going to be Happy Camper Honey, you know, but I didn't have to because I got the other building.
Yeah, good. And how do you feel about your Lyons community after the flood?
There's a lot of people that are still very sad. Some are very affected. There's some that are really unscathed, and in some ways I get a little hurt seeing a huge normalcy with some of the not so attached people. But, you know, I look at it and say, well, how can they even, you know, feel that? They need to get back to normal too, because they had to leave their homes for a month. They lost all their food, they lost everything just like everybody else. And no matter how much money you had, it didn't matter. And even the generators didn't take care of it. But it's everybody's helping everybody, you know. I'm still with my honey sticks. I think I've given away more honey sticks than I can even imagine. But, you know, all the volunteers that come up always get a handful. And you guys got some honey downstairs. I'll get you. But it's still Lyons. It still is. And I think everybody became even closer.
Yes.
You know. And keeping the people that made Lyons is very important to the people that have moved here after the fact. And I just ordered an auto harp online because when I first came here and my kids were small, like they'd go be with their friends down in Platteville or whatever, I'd go do the jams on the street and we'd have nobody to listen. Nobody ever stop in Lyons, you know. And I played bass too. I have a bass, but I don't play it that well. But they'd have me play bass, but they didn't care because there was no other bass players, you know, and nobody was listening anyway. And so we'd have our jams, and that's what sparked Lyons. And then through the years when the festivals came, I came here before the festivals, so we still had our own little private little place where we just play music and do art, and just this handful of little bohemians, I guess. And the trailer park was a huge part of that. Mm-hmm. A lot of small business people lived in that trailer park. Well, I just ordered an auto harp online today. I'm so happy to have it back because my auto harp, which is like, it's an auto harp, it went under. And
very delicate.
And I hated to see that go. But then again, my friend the Flood, I'm getting a new one. Better than the used one I had.
That's great.
So I'm looking forward to that. It should come anytime and I can get back to jamming again.
That's great.
Yeah, and my hopes when I had that little store, you know, just to play in the store, you know, once I got the store settled, because I'm still a new business and I haven't really settled into the store yet. I haven't done the things, I just got it to where I got my product. Now I can start shaping it and sit on my porch and play my auto harp in between customers.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and so that'll be another feature that'll come.
Well, I wanted you to show, hold up that little ceramic.
Yeah, my ornament for my customer. I'm going to put it maybe with a background here. This little ornament was glazed with what was left behind by the river, the silt. It's a very, very fine sand, and silly me, I didn't get a jar of it myself because it's really something to see. It's so smooth and so silky. And now they're starting to make little pottery pieces with this. And it's just glaze.
It's very pretty. It's kind of a symbol for some of the beauty that came out of the
One of my customers gave this to me, and I have the best customers in the world because they checked on me. I had a few donate to me and not accept any yes or no, you know, and they were just all there for me, and many have offered for helping, but sadly the store is so tiny it can't fit more than one person in there to help come the warmer weather maybe. But I'm really pleased with this, and I'm very thankful to my customer that gave it to me.
That's great. Thanks. Well, I really want to thank you for this interview and for sharing your experiences. Is there anything you'd like to mention that you haven't, that we haven't covered?
Not anything I've really thought of other than, like I said, I think everybody will find that their happiness after the flood, you know, because it's there and it's Lyons, and as long as they contribute to Lyons and stay a part of it, it'll be there.
Right.
If they stay miserable, it's just going to take longer.
Well, you've learned,
it's hard not to be, I know, in some cases, but...
Well, you've learned to be very resilient, and good luck on your working on affordable housing for Lyons.
Yeah, that's my next move. I just got the whole list together yesterday, and I'm pretty excited about it, but I'm pretty exhausted going into it. Going, God, one more breath, Care. Go on in.
Yeah, just keep going.
I'm hoping what I can do is actually get it initialized and have one of the younger folks perhaps carry it the rest of the way.
Good.
You know, because it's their turn now.
Yeah, it's their turn to lead.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, and the best to you.
And I thank you for being able to be a part of this. And
you're welcome.
Long after I'm gone, you guys will hear my story, and that's amazing. And even my kids or grandkids will be able to hear my story. And that's wonderful, and I thank you for asking me.
You're welcome. It's our privilege.
Thanks.